And the other thing is, according to the race equity study that was done by the Wisconsin Council on Children and Families, Wisconsin has the worst racial disparity in the criminal justice system in the country, and Dane County is the worst in the state. We are all responsible for that. And, you know, when I look at the numbers, I think blacks are 50%, are 6% of the population. In the Dane County jail, they're 50%. There's something wrong. And so I'd like you to address those issues of how the community does deal with racial disparity and the police as well, and also just the problems we have in the criminal justice system.
Sure. Well, that report, from 2 years old now, over 3 years, has literally been a rally cry, not just for the community, but in particular for the police department. Because certainly we are a part of that problem. So now the challenge is how can we be a part of its solution? And I appreciate the fact that you acknowledge at the outset of your remarks that above and beyond us doing the call and response to crime activities, there are also many other factors within the infrastructure of education, increasingly sort of some habitability issues, and that's why some of our neighborhoods are being extremely taxed because of what people can or cannot afford to live in America. The poverty issue, you're right, we have 27,000 students at MSD. The district's figures, 50% are subsidized for those economic lunches, and in some districts it's as high as 65% as far as some schools. So all of these form a consortium or a perfect storm for disaster. Now, what we have to obviously double down to do is ensure that, first of all, to her point, are we hiring people who have sufficient character, ethics, and morals, that they are not going to be sort of brought in or brought down by cop culture. I was pleased as a recovering FBI agent myself to see that the director of the FBI, the first time in ever, actually make a statement on a controversial subject. I commend him for doing so. And he acknowledged, as do I, that there are those issues, occupational or otherwise, that we have to be constantly mindful of and probative of. Unconscious bias, the culture of nights, where you see all of your contacts are typically dealing with, after midnight, a lot of people are drunk or high on something, and you start to lose patience, and you have to have people who are watching you as you watch others. There have to be sufficient checks and balances to ensure that we don't have those sort of rogues. And when rogues come up, we got to run them out of our department. So we need to also look at what is it, though, that is intrinsic in the way we police, that even though we don't think at one level that we're doing anything wrong, does it have a de facto or some sort of unintended consequence because of the practice? That's something I think we always have to be mindful of, and I think we're trying to do just that. Your figures are absolutely stellar, spot on in terms of those sort of disparities. But one of the things that, going back to sort of these neighborhood issues, is that I think an awful lot of the rhetoric thus far has been focusing on the police in terms of who we are arresting. And I don't even want to go there for a minute because I like to always look at paradigm challenges. And I want to say that out of the 6%, 6 to 7% of our community is African American, I'm just as taken back by the fact that when we look at Part 1, violent crimes, that 34% of our victims are African American. I don't want to forget victims in the grand scheme of things, because we are spending a lot of time talking about who it is that we're arresting, but I don't want to forget victims as well. But at the end of the day, I think we have to continue to ask for the community for those sorts of things that help us help ourselves. So when we have people who aren't being treated appropriately, I need to know that in real time. Those need to be reported. Those need to be vetted, investigated, and appropriately dealt with. And then we do have to look at some of the systems that are going on. One of the things I'm excited about is that later this month there's going to be a restorative court initiative put out on the south side, and that's chiefly going to be brought about by officers in the field that are in the South District. So let's say in particular where we have the most issues is that 17 to 26-year-old group. That's where a lot of these contacts, adverse consequences are occurring. In that pilot project, when an officer has something that would be otherwise diagnosed as a misdemeanor, a simple theft, a battery, a retail theft, something like that, the officer can take the name, take the information, and then basically say, I'm ordering you because I have probable cause to believe a crime was committed and you committed the crime. I'm ordering you to show up at the Villager Mall in 3 weeks' time. And you're going to go before a peer court, people from the community. And in that interim period of time, we're going to see what kind of occasions there has been for adverse context. This is someone who's never otherwise been involved in the criminal justice system. Those cases are going to be plucked out of midstream. No one's going to be booked. No CCAP entry is going to be generated. They're going to be ordered in 3 weeks' time. And in that interim period, Ron Johnson and all those other people working with this county and funding the grant are going to see what is it that made you have that first harmful impact. Is it because you're falling out of school? Is it because you have an AODA issue? Is it because it's a question of joblessness? And they will do their best to try to find some sort of wraparound method to see if we gave you the resources that our community has to give, might you not have taken that first harmful step? And the community will be able to have an opportunity to speak what's appropriate accountability. And if they then meet out what the community expectations are, do you know how profound that would be? Because this would be the first time that no one would be booked with a CCAP. CCAP, I know a lot of us are always on there, but you know what? CCAP does a great disservice to people of color in particular. It inhibits your ability to complete a job, to look for work, to get employment opportunities for school. And a lot of CCAP doesn't flesh out the fact, or people don't care that it was dropped, it was dismissed, or it was a forfeiture, or. All people are interested in is the sexy part, is who got arrested for what. You really need to look at the resolution of these cases to be fair and to have some integrity. And I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of disingenuous employers and others who just look at CCAP for what you're arrested for. They don't care about the dispositional code. So we're working with the state bank of courts. They're waiting for a new state administrator, but we've been in touch with the Chief Justice to say we want to work on at least eradicating the dismissals and the forfeitures from those CCAP entries. We need to work more on those kinds of institutional issues that contribute to the problem.